And now, let's welcome our distinguished panelists to the stage for the first of our dynamic panels on leading the charge for clean electrons and molecules. I'd like to welcome Minister Andrew Bowie, Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State, Minister for Nuclear and Networks, Department of Energy Security and Net Zero UK. His Excellency Mohamed Hammadi, ENEC Managing Director and CEO. Oliver Stone, Director. Mavi Zingoni, CEO of GE Power. And our moderator, Atul Arya, Senior Vice President and Chief Energy Strategist, S&P Energy, to the stage.
Hello, there we go. Now it's working. Excellent. Good morning. It's great to be here with this terrific panel. You got the introduction, so I won't spend more time introducing the panel. I will just give you a setup, and David and Stefan have done a great job to set it up. And remember the title of this panel, which is Leading the Charge. So remember the word charge here for electrons and molecules. And what we're going to do is unpack the discussion presentation from David and Stefan. They talked about the demand and the opportunity, but also some of the challenges. So we will get into that. And also, we will talk about why nuclear now, and what is the vision for the future. So I want to start with you, Honorable Minister. Can you say a little bit about, what is the case for nuclear now and nuclear today, and how significant a contribution it could make, say, by 2050?
The case for nuclear, firstly, can I congratulate the UAE and in particular for delivering what is, I think, a historic COP with such a focus on nuclear. I mean, the case that has been made here, and indeed is being made around the world for nuclear energy is incredible and unprecedented, and actually, compared to where we were even this time last year, is transformational. We are now in a position where around the world, countries who have never looked at nuclear before, or countries that had for the last 20 to 30 years not been investing in nuclear, are taking huge strides to develop their civil nuclear fleet and develop clean, secure, reliable energy production that will help us meet our net zero objectives and become more energy independent and secure. And that there is the case for it, right? There is no net zero without nuclear power. That is now recognized the world over. And I am in the incredibly privileged position of representing His Majesty's government and being able to sit here and tell you about the great strides we are taking domestically in the UK. In the 10 months or so since I've been privileged enough to hold this position, we have launched our small modular reactor down selection program. We've increased pace at Hinkley Point C. We've gone to capital raise for Sizewell C. We have done so much on advanced nuclear fuels, and this morning signed a memorandum of understanding with our friends here in the UAE, which demonstrates more than anything what we are doing to ensure that we meet our commitment to get 24 gigawatts of nuclear power on the grid in the UK, which is 25% of overall energy need domestically, and taking that story overseas and encouraging our partners to do the same. So it's great. The case is it's as plain as can be. We need nuclear power, and we need it now more than ever.
Thank you. So, Your Excellency, Mohamed Al-Hammadi, as Minister Bowie said, you have in UAE been leading the charge. However, what comes ahead? What's your vision for nuclear in the future?
Thank you, Atul. First of all, I'd like to welcome you all to Dubai, and it is really an honor to receive people from all over the world with one single commitment. Everybody is coming here to make this planet better for us, for our children and grandchildren. And this is something, a very noble cause that we are all here to find solutions and make solutions happen. What I've seen in the last couple of days, real commitment from the world that we need to find concrete solutions, proven solutions for the betterment of humanity. The net zero nuclear, it's been taking momentum, I think, since Glasgow. There's a lot of interest from Glasgow at COP 26, 27, and today 28. We see serious interest in the world to make nuclear part of the solution. And on the 2nd of December, which is our national day, we've managed to invite over 22 nations to come and sign this declaration to triple nuclear before 2050. And this is only the beginning. And also, I can give you some good news in the UAE. We are also embarking on operating our 4th reactor. And the team finished the fuel load that reactor of Unit 4, preparing it to come operational next year. And that will add another 10 terawatt hour for our grid, which is an amazing achievement within a span of a decade. And look forward how we can, as industry, look at the challenge, find solutions, and deliver solutions like we did here in Bowie. But we've seen also in UAE today, around 9 to 10 gigawatt of electricity of a clean base load will be required from now until 2030, 2035. And these are from sectors which is hard to abate, from transportation sector, from aluminum factories. And we've seen also very serious demand coming very fast toward all nations on data centers coupled with AI, with artificial intelligence. We've seen the growth, and this is only the beginning, by the way. The exponential growth of this demand is huge. And I cannot present well as good as Steve Quest and Dave Victor on the data that they've gathered from the world of how the demand will grow. So looking at energy security, looking at rapid decarbonization, we want to be part of that solution as the Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation. What we've done in Baraka is only 20% of our ambition. There is an 80% of clean molecules, clean electrons. And as His Excellency the Minister said at the opening remarks, we are local, we want to go global, we want to be part of the solutions all the way from the beginning of technology, I would say from infancy of technology, to scalability of those technologies, to going and having massive growth globally. Please count on us, and we want to be your partners.
Thank you. So I'll come back to a couple of things, comments you have made. But Oliver Stone, first of all, I want to make sure can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry, I have to speak loud because we are a bit further away. So you made, and I should plug your documentary, Nuclear Now, to this audience. It was a very compelling case you made for nuclear. But one of the things I learned from the documentary is that the public opinion is still a challenge, isn't it? And so can you tell us why nuclear now, and how do you change the minds of people around the world? Yeah.
Well, we're talking about the whole world here. Your figures are not correct for the United States. In America, North America, the population has gotten younger, and it's 60, 70% in favor of nuclear energy. So I don't know what you're talking about. In Europe, you're behind. There's no question. There's a traditional aspect. Europe is divided. Half the nation is for, half against. Asia is completely open and leading the field. No one knows this in the United States because we never allowed ourselves to talk about it. It's censored. Is that China and Russia are the leaders in nuclear energy by far. They're doing the most interesting work. They're doing the fastest. They're spending the most amount of money. The United States is slowly catching up now because of the last three governments have been bipartisan, 4 governments from Bush on, bipartisan in the United States. So you're speaking, I don't know for who, for a bunch of countries in Europe that are a little bit slower. I was just in Italy. We were showing the film. Our film is showing on TV tonight in Italy, dubbed, of course. It's called Nuclear Now, and it proposes that nuclear energy we're really going to need a lot of energy in the next, by 2050. We're talking 2 to 4 times the amount of energy, 2 to 4 times, at least of electricity, and there's all kinds of other things, non-electrical carbon sources that have to be fixed It's a huge job beyond measure, beyond anything we know. I'm coming from the outside. I'm not a scientist. I'm a filmmaker interpreting a book I bought. Stefan Skvist, who you saw on the stage a few minutes ago, is a Swedish co-author of that book, and it's called A Bright Future. It's a wonderful book, A Bright Future. The word says it all. We have to look to a future where there's some hope, where we can want to live. And right now, all I'm seeing in many doomsday scenarios. Among them, of course, is the movie business. My business, I'm ashamed. Hollywood has put out nothing but a fear message about nuclear since the beginning of time, since the 1940s. We relate it to the war. We don't talk about the difference between enriched uranium and nuclear energy, which is a different form of, perhaps the mistake was to use the word nuclear, but it's nothing to be ashamed of in the word nuclear, but that's the impression you get from the media. I say the media because even in the United States, where the shift of the population, the majority, is in favor, you wouldn't know it from the media. They keep saying, nuclear, of course there's nuclear energy. They're taken for granted. It's 20% of the energy of the United States, 20%, and yet it's taken for granted. It's always there, it's boring. No one pays attention until there's some kind of accident or mishap, and then everybody screams. Meanwhile, the gas, oil, and coal business go on killing people in much larger quantities, and no one says anything. So I'm kind of disgusted by the hypocrisy of the whole thing. And we're very lucky to be here and to get this film on the agenda.
Thank you. So what I take away from you, what I take away from you is that public opinion is already moved in many places which matter. That's what you're saying, right?
Public opinion is not educated in this matter. This is a scientific matter. Scientists, doctors, this is what it's about. Get all the scientists in the world, line them up and put the other scientists that don't agree with them, and we'll see who wins in that debate. What I think the IPCC, which has, 300 and some more scientists, is much more authoritative than any of us are.
Yeah, thank you. Mavi, Zingoni, you are, head of GE Power. The history of nuclear in terms of costs and challenges putting new plants has not been great. So what's, in your view, the current business case for nuclear, and what do you see GE's role in that?
Thank you, Atul. I'm very, very glad to be here today and share this panel. And I appreciate the question, because I think that there was a lot of things being said in here when it comes to the macro. Why the world needs nuclear, why we will not be able to make carbon neutral by 2050 without the nuclear. When we think about the emissions, 40% of the emissions are concentrated in the power sector. And on top of that, we still have more than 700 million people, without access to electricity. On top of that, if we see our power installed base right now, 75% of the carbon emissions are concentrated in the coal. So only with replacement what we have to replace and the additional demand that we will have with people that today doesn't have access to electricity, plus the growth in the population and the development of the economies, we'll need more power. More power, no less. So we'll need all type of technologies. But it's clear that the world will not make it without the nuclear. So we started the COP saying that it's going to be, we will need 3 times the installed capacity that we have today. But you are, Atul, challenging with a very good point. What about the cost? I'd say that unfortunately in some cases in the past the nuclear as a sector probably lagged in delivering the projects on time and on budget. But there are great examples like the one here in the UAE that says one of the best in class. So it's also a bit of hope that we learned the lessons, and if we work together, we can apply them. So if the world needs to triple the nuclear, my first reflection is that we'll need a combination of both large nuclears and small module reactors as well. It's also taking your point. we as a sector in here, and we need to work together on this, we need to earn the right. I think that there is a rebirth of the nuclear right now. I think that the society in general, different stakeholders, think that we are all understanding that we need it, but we cannot take it for granted. We have to deliver. The government is enabling or are enabling. We have to deliver that. When it comes to the cost, and let me focus on second part of your question, what we are doing in GE Vernova. Know that we are one of the players who were proudly say that one that has a commercial contract right now for the small module reactor. We're working hard to end the design by the end of next year. So that's a good thing, and we are investing more than $400 million in that, and we are doing that with three partners. OPG in Canada, Ontario Power Generation, TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority in the US, also with a JV between Synthos and Orlen in Poland. And the beauty of that is that you already have three countries just working together and collaborating together. Because to your question on what are we doing when it comes to the cost, I think that the beauty of the small module reactors has to do with the standard design. I think that having a standard design, for sure then you have to adapt them to specific requests that you may have in the different countries. But if we can make seismic issues, etc. But if we can make it standard, I mean, it's going to be part of the cost. Standard, and then make it in modules. So making sure that we have that way of working, that we have regulation with harmonization, different countries, I think it's going to be key.
So the idea being design one and build many, so you can get the experience curve down. So let's come back. So Minister Bowie, let's come back to you for a minute. You know, one of the things we've already heard on this panel around COP is the point of collaboration among multiple stakeholders, governments, businesses, public, non-profit. How do you see that collaboration impacting the nuclear sector? Now, could you also speak about the tripling target? How does that change the landscape?
It changes it. Look, the announcement this past week of the commitment of over 20 nations to tripling nuclear power generation around the world really is, and I know that people use platitudes, and I know that politicians can be. I mean, I've never been accused of it myself, of being hyperbolic when it comes to our statements. But actually, it is genuinely incredible what has been achieved by the UAE here at this COP. To get 22 nations to commit to trebling nuclear power around the world is incredible. It would not have happened 5 or 10 years ago. It wouldn't have happened 2 years ago. The fact is that there is a genuine acknowledgement now around the world that if we are serious, and I'm very proud to say the UK is, and I know that the UAE is, about meeting our net zero objectives, if we are serious about taking action to address the climate situation that we find ourselves in right now, then nuclear has to play a part of that. And to see the nations represented on that stage at the weekend, saying that publicly and committing themselves and their governments to the action that they did was incredible. It's hugely positive. So yeah, it's a huge step forward. In terms of the collaboration, I have spent, in the 10 months since I was appointed Minister for Nuclear, by the way, the first ever Minister for Nuclear that the United Kingdom has ever had, a huge privilege for me to hold that position. I have been to Sweden, France, Japan, the USA, here in the UAE, and I'm sure I've missed countries out of that, the Czech Republic, Poland, all of which are looking at doing the same. All of which, some countries which have never had a nuclear program, had no history in nuclear power generation, are now engaging their countries, their populations in the nuclear journey. And that's huge, and it's going to take collaboration across countries and within countries, because as Oliver said, the mood has shifted. There's a generational shift in terms of the perception of nuclear and how it can contribute to the huge efforts that we're taking to combat climate change. And it's a new generation that don't have the hangover of the perceived negatives around nuclear power, the contrivance of nuclear power with nuclear weapons, Chernobyl. All of that is ancient history to an entire generation that is coming through and sees it as part of the solution to what we're doing. And, you know, it also creates high-wage, high-skilled jobs, which is a great benefit too. So, look, of course, collaboration is key within and between countries if we're serious about achieving what we're setting out to do.
Yeah, very good. So His Excellency Al-Hammadi, we now have a big target, and so what would be your call? We have a lot of people here from the nuclear sector. How do they prepare for the challenge? How do they deliver the challenge?
Atul, that's a great question. I think that's the question that we all need to ask ourselves before we leave here, and while we are also networking on those opportunities of coffee breaks to discuss and find where are we today. From my view, been in the nuclear industry only for 15 years. I'm not as veteran as some of the people I see here, of my colleagues. We are in a race, and this race will only reward the best and the fittest when it comes to meeting energy security and decarbonization. So those two conditions are very simple: energy security and decarbonization. And we need to find success stories and capitalize on them. If I may share with UAE, the UAE story today, in the last 10 years, in the last 5 years, we've installed the highest electricity per capita of a clean electricity. Today, we rank number 1 when it comes to installing clean energy per capita in the last 5 years. Today, the Baraka plant, which is 4 units in Baraka, is producing, 3 of them, is producing 75% of clean electricity here in the UAE. That's 75%. Shows how nuclear can contribute, and can contribute in larger scale to the electricity sector. Another data point I would like also to share with you, one of the key of being cheap and clean electricity, the nuclear, as per the Bank of America data, shows that the ROI of nuclear is 75x in ROI. And that's a very, very big number. And we are feeling that benefit in the UAE of having a program that will run for 60 years, creating jobs, industries, and providing clean baseload electricity for our country. So now the pledge or the target that we have today discussed and find ways of how we can achieve that is how do we triple the current installed nuclear capacity. We have policymakers, we have industry, we have technology providers, we have supply chain, we have banks, lawyers in this room. How do we take that now government-led policy initiative of let's triple nuclear, and how do we deliver it? And that question, I leave it to the audience of how do we make this happen? It's challenging, but it's doable. It's been done in the 80s by countries like Sweden, France, and other countries in the 80s and early 90s. And I think it's easily doable in this century.
One other quick follow-up. I think you mentioned 22 countries have signed the pledge so far. You have an expectation more will sign. What's the target there?
We have on the 1st, as on the 2nd December, we had an event where we had 22 countries come and sign that declaration. And I do thank also the WNA, Sama Bilbao, being here, of driving that initiative globally. We had 10 presidents came in that event and signed that declaration. We had 22 countries, and soon will be 24. And I think the number will go exponentially high because there is a realization globally, as Mr. Alberstone mentioned, globally people today realize that we cannot achieve net zero, we cannot decarbonize as fast as we're supposed to do without serious engagement of the world and making this a reality. Be it advanced reactors, SMR, Gen 3 reactors, we have all to work as one team with one goal of how do we arrest the 1.5 and drive toward the net zero.
Yeah. So, Oliver Stone, so we know we have a target, but it seems that the pace of deployment of technology, say SMR as a good example, which you refer to in your documentary, what is your sense? How can that pace be accelerated? What do you recommend to both the industry and the governments, get on the track here?
Well, it's clear from the examples of China and Russia that government leads the way. Yeah. In the West, we have private-public enterprises. They're difficult. And that's been slowing the process down. It's, as I said, now finally in the United States, after 2000, it's become a bipartisan issue, which is good.
Yeah.
But still, it's slow because the handouts are mostly the renewables, which are fine. It's good, but it's extremely expensive, and at the same time, there is waste also. And what are we going to do with the waste? I mean, there's quite a lot of it coming up. In acreage alone, a solar park is almost 5 times the size of the acreage of a nuclear reactor. We have to build as many nuclear reactors as possible. We have to, I wish Mr. Likachev were here from Rosatom because he makes the best argument I've heard. He was unfortunately called to Abu Dhabi. But Mr. Likachev in the film makes an argument that we really need both, we need reactors of big and small natures. SMRs, but the big ones too should not be forgotten because you have to build like 5 SMRs or whatever it is to get the equivalent of a large reactor. China, I've heard, and this I can't verify, has changed its program and is building 150 new reactors by 2038. You're nodding, am I right? Yeah. Have you heard that? Because I've heard that. If they're building 150 reactors by 2038, that's 10 a year. 10 a year. That's pretty significant. And that's what we need to do. They're building on a big way. They're building high and low. They have the 2 reactors. They call them their own now, Walong and Lilong or something like that. So we should be studying them. And here we are struggling amongst ourselves with the language, and it's all small-time stuff compared to where we have to go. Necessity is the mother of invention, in my opinion. Always has been. It's a cliche, but when we start to really suffer, they're going to be screaming, oh, where's nuclear? Where's nuclear? We're going to be 5, 10 years slower because we can't build that fast. But China is teaching us. Korea did teach us. We were there, as far as I'm concerned, in the 1970s. I was a young man. And then we started to listen to all the crap from Jane Fonda and I'm sorry, I admire her very much for her Vietnam stance, but on this issue she was dead wrong. So was Ralph Nader, and he continues to be wrong on it. And he's been called to task on it. You should see his comments on his Facebook page or whatever. He's out of date. He's a dinosaur. He's talking about the 1970s, but even then it was working. In America, we were building big. Westinghouse, General Electric. Well, it's too bad that they just ran into regulations that were killing them. Regulations cost money, and taxes, and Canada's cut back on its taxes, I hear. These kind of programs, taxing carbon makes sense. Taxation of property taxes, everything that they can do, a government can do to help build a reactor, even if it's a tiny one. Let's do it.
So are you advocating for, you mentioned China and Russia have more active government role. So are you advocating for the Western countries represented here?
I would love to see that. I would love to believe that. In my heart, I'm a believer in the United Nations. I would love to see a United Nations of clean energy. It's a beautiful idea. But it's impossible in my opinion, the United States leading this anti-Chinese, anti-Russian policy. It's madness, and we're not cooperating. We're not cooperating. There's this ideology in our mentality. I fought against it all my life, so I'm making films left and right, trying. But why can't we get along? I feel ridiculous saying it, but we should be able to get along because the planet is we're all in the same boat, We act as if we have all these geopolitical interests. Take a look at the sun and the stars and you'll see your answer. We're all on the same planet, we're all in the same boat.
Thank you. So, Mavi, I want to go back to sort of the practicalities and, Oliver Stone is saying more, let's get along, do collaboration. But there is another issue which is around capacity building. We don't have as many trained nuclear engineers, technicians, people to build the plants. What do you see is, as necessary, what you're doing and as an industry, because you're going to buy for tripling, I don't know how many thousands of people you're going to need.
Yeah, thank you, Atul. I think that initiatives like the net zero, I mean, it's part of the answer. But I'd like to start with some figures. No, let's say, okay, let's triple the capacity here. So we need more than 1,000 gigawatts. So that's a number. No, more than that. Let's say half large nuclear. So it means that we might need 500 gigawatts, more than 500 units. Say 500 gigawatts in small modular reactors, we might be talking about 1,500. So it's massive. So the first reaction say, okay, what do we have to do is that we need to build the sector capacity. I apologize when I shift there. So we are building or rebuilding a whole new sector in here. So we need to cooperate and we need to collaborate the different stakeholders to make this happen, and then we compete where we have to compete. For sure, there are a bunch of companies working on SMR designs. Listen, we'll need, probably someone may argue it's too crowded. Well, market will realize what are the ones, but you cannot have only one. That's a reality. There is no company that can do it 100% of it. So where and how we cooperate, we collaborate on the different parts of the value chain as a whole. And when you think about the value chain, I think about the design, but for the design, how many engineers are we going to need in the next 20, 30 years? So if you ask me what I've been doing yesterday after some panels, I've been with STEM female engineers, engineering students, just promoting nuclear among other things. So what are we doing collectively just to make the foundations of this? So it means we need to work on how to develop the talent that we're going to need. How do we develop the supply chain, and what are the things that we need to do in each of the regions? Supply chain is really important, and then have the OEMs are working on the design. That is also important. But that's one part of the ecosystem. Then you need the governments. Now, governments, in my way, the most that they can push the regulators or give a clear mandate to the regulators just to work, okay, how do we make that happen quickly? How do you make the different nuclear standards to make as harmonized as possible depending on each of the things? How do we work together in there? I think that that's the name of the game. It's let's cooperate, let's collaborate. There's a whole new system or whole new sector that we are building here. There's a lot of room for all of us. Once we are there, we can compete where we need to compete. But in the meantime, we have to make this happen. We have the duty to make this happen. That's the only technology that you can have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of clean energy. And we have to be aware of that. And by the way, with a very high concentration of energy intensity that you don't need huge land.
Yeah,
no, that's
same
important.
point as Oliver Stone was making that, and it's important in very populated countries where there isn't that kind of space you need, and given the gigawatts you're talking about, Mavi, it's going to be massive space depending upon the type of technology. Minister Boyd, do you want to comment a little bit around sort of capacity building and the supply chains, which are going to become issues coming into the future?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The UK has the same issue that so many countries around the world face, not least the same issue that Oliver pointed out, that 20 or 30 years ago more, we took our foot off the gas wrongly. When it came to investment in nuclear, that means that we have a smaller supply chain. That means we have a less of a skilled workforce that are ready to go out and deliver the projects that we need to deliver. And that's going to involve, to resolve these issues, it will involve collaboration between nations who are used to competing. Now, competition is good. It delivers and it drives success. And I think that competition between nations on nuclear will end up delivering the projects and let us get to the capacity that we need. But we need to work together because it's a global problem that we face. You know, climate change is affecting every single country in the world. So we need to find areas where we can, as is demonstrated today by the MOU that I signed with His Excellency just before coming into this panel, there are ways that nations can work together on the shared issues that we face. And one of those is building up that skilled workforce, developing the supply chains within our respective countries and indeed around the world that will enable us to deliver the projects that we all, certainly in this room and wider, acknowledge that we're going to have to do. One of the first things I did when I got the job was launch the Nuclear Skills Task Force. Now that's a domestic project bringing together military, civil nuclear, academia and industry within the UK to see how we can build capacity within educational establishments and indeed within industry to deliver the spaces needed to get young people into science, technology, engineering and mathematics and then on into the nuclear industry. That's a domestic program. I would love to be able to expand that into some sort of international program to build up the workforce that we need across the world. So, I mean, I was at Hinkley Point C. As a prime example, Hinkley Point, I'm very proud of the work that's going on at Hinkley in the UK. There are 10,000 workers on the Hinkley Point C site right now. 10,000 workers from 42 nations. Right? Now, there's an example of international collaboration on a nuclear project right there. And I would like to see that replicated time and time and time again, not just in the UK, but around the world.
So, Your Excellency, similar question, but focusing on MENA region for now, what's your vision, because you have been leading the charge here in the UAE, you see that kind of collaboration across the region?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. First of all, I may comment also on some of the points mentioned. I think the issue is today nuclear is proven to be part of the energy mix. And UAE today we have a very diversified portfolios of energies. We have nuclear, we have renewable, and you could see the harmony between those different sources of energy. You need that mixed portfolio. That's very, very important. And nuclear, I think we said enough, is that it's proven, it's delivered in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Now advanced technologies are coming. We need to make it a reality. Human capital will be a key player. And we need a key player and a very important, because people get technologies, people manufacture, people have the skills to make things happen, and that's what we need. And we need a global collaboration, as my colleague mentioned from GE. To your specific point in Middle East, by the way, I would ask my colleague to stand up there. From the woman in nuclear, can you stand up, please? She launched yesterday. And under her leadership, she and her colleagues established the first women in nuclear chapter in the Middle East. And this shows that we need leadership. We need leadership across the board to make things happen. And this is something, it gives me goosebumps when I talk about it, because I've been involved in this industry, and to see women leading, to see young people leading this industry back in the driver's seat is very important. And that will take us to accelerate that race and be able to save the environment and save the climate.
Yeah. Oliver Stone, I mean, there must be something behind you making this movie. What kind of motivated you, and what's your message now? I mean, it looks like some of the things you talked about in the movie are now coming, in the documentary, I should say, are coming true, aren't they?
You know, as an ignorant outsider in the 1970s, I believed what they were saying about nuclear energy, was not passionate about it, was not activist. But look where we are, and when I saw Mr. Gore's film from about...
Impossible Truth, yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
The original film, you mean, back in
2006.
Yeah.
It was very effective. However, when you examined it, what behind the scenes, it wasn't working in terms of its results. Carbon dioxide was going up past 80% levels. So that was it bothers my sense of logic. And part of the reason, and Mr. Gore may not admit it himself, but He doesn't mention nuclear energy in the whole damn film. And he talks about clean energy. It's something bizarre. That bothers my sense of logic. And I got more and more into it. I read Stefan's book with Josh Goldstein. It's a wonderful book. I repeat, A Bright Future. And it really is, it's very scientific, and it's very tough to dramatize that. And I spent a long time trying to figure out how to do this. And we'd like to make a follow-up film, number 2, because I think that times are changing fast. We would follow the new technologies, because in the film we hear about all of the uses of nuclear that can work because of the heat. Because the heat it creates is wasted. It's sent off into the atmosphere. It's not used. All that heat can be used in some different ways, combined also with hydrogen. And the possibilities of hydrogen plus carbon plus nuclear are amazing. When you think about it, first of all, very much of interest to us is liquid fuel, for planes, cars, trucks, diesels. And that seems possible. Nuclear has the most potential, and there's other ways of doing it, but let's get some liquid fuel. Let's get the jets under control here, and that would really make some sense. That's a real goal that people will see. Once they see that, they can see, oh, wow, this really does work. And they're not going to be raising all this bullshit about nuclear energy exceptions. So, it's all possible. It's all possible. The mind of man is incredible. I'm amazed. I don't believe some of the people here. They're talking about stuff I never dreamed of. More power to them. This is a great time. But let's not lose sight of the main goal, which is let's build reactors.
Yeah. Thank you, and good luck with your number 2 documentary. Mavi, I'm going to give you the last word. So tell us about, you mentioned earlier about the SMRs in Canada and TVA and so on. What's the kind of, when do you see them coming online? And how many, maybe a trick question here, how many SMRs by 2030 you think could be operational? Not just GE, I'm talking about the overall.
Let's say a lot of questions in one. Say we'll have a license to construct by the end of next year. Important thing in here is that we are relying on existing technology. And this is important. The technology exists. It's how we are applying it. It's what is changing. So that's an important thing. The second one is a fuel that already exists, and we do have the manufacturing capacity. So it means that we're also leveraging the design on it. So once we have the license to construct, the FID decision is made by OPG, we're thinking about 3 years of construction. So by the end of 2027, beginning of 28, we might need to have the first one in operation. And I think that is going to be important and a very important milestone, like when you are introducing a new product, and we all understand the risk here that probably no one wants to be first, but everybody wants to be second. No, once it is the risking, that is what we are finding right now. So everybody arguing, okay, what's next? So I'd say that by 2030, there are others evolving as well, but we might need to have probably a few dozens, very little, but then the ramp up should be in the next decade. But we have to reach the next decade at a cruise speed just to deliver the number that the world is asking us to deliver.
Agreed.
Again, the technology thing is going to be in there, has always shown up. We as a society have always managed to develop the technology. I think that the willingness is the willingness to do this is in there, and we have the duty to do that.
Well, I think that's a great positive note to end this great panel. I want to the word I want to summarize it is what Oliver Stone said: let's go out and build some reactors. So with that, please join me in thanking this excellent panel.